Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of MindSpeak. This is our 50th episode, and as usual, we're trying to bring in interesting and different subjects and match them with equally good speakers who share with us their hearts and minds. As most of you know, we started off MindSpeak from the 31st of March at 2 p.m. as a daily affair, and then went from 21st of uh, May as an alternate day affair. I I had always been fascinated with Golconda diamonds, and in my career, I had an opportunity to also deal with a few. I remember in around the 1980s, late 1980s, a broker had brought to me a 38 carat rough diamonds and said it was a Golconda, and it was lying with the family for the last 30, 40 years. We closed the deal. We bought the stone. I showed the stone to many cutters in Mumbai, but did not get any satisfactory replies to the shape and the kind of weight they were expecting from the stone. I showed the stone to a very old diamond cutting firm in Antwerp, and he asked me, "What do you want from this?" I said, "I want the stone to be of the best shape and get the maximum weight, since the stone is crystal clear." He made a cushion-shaped 21 carat stone from that rough diamond within the next few months, and luckily it was certified as pink. At the age of 37, for me, it was quite an achievement, as I was already doubling my investment, and I also got a certificate that the origin was from Golconda. Today, we are going to talk a lot on this great subject, the magic, the mystery, and the allure of Golconda diamonds from India to the world. We have two important people who are going to speak their hearts out, and I know as they love this subject of Golconda diamonds. We have with us Dr. Usha Balakrishnan, who is an art historian and curator based out in Mumbai. She is a globally renowned independent scholar of Indian art and culture and the preeminent historian of Indian jewelry. She is the principal curator of the World Diamond Museum and serves on expert committees of the Kerala Museum. Usha has a PhD in ancient Indian culture and a postdoctorate degree in museum studies from New York University, US. She has worked for the Brooklyn Museum, New York, and was the Indian representative for Sotheby's. Her publications include Dance of the Peacock, Jewelry Traditions of India, on the 5,000-year history of the Indian jewelry, Jewels of the Nizams, the first publication on the renowned collection of Royal Indian Jewelry, and most recently, she has co-authored Treasures of the Deccan. Jewels of the Nizams, which brings together fabulous jewels of the Nizams of Hyderabad from around the world and rare archival photographs. She has many more publications, which I may not be able to speak about right now, as there is a long list. She's also a lot of curatorial projects that she has done with museums around the world and adornment the jewelry gallery at the Prince of Wales Museum in Mumbai, the Chhatrapati Shivaji Museum. She has curated several jewelry conferences also, and we are also blessed to have such a dignitary in our presence today. We have with us also Chirag Soni from the SGL Laboratories. With 17 diamond testing laboratories worldwide, Chirag has been the driving force behind SGL since its inception. SGL has expanded to become one of the largest diamond certification lab networks in just over a decade. After working in the research and development arm of a scientific instrument producer, Chirag has created an independent lab focused on high grading, ethical standards, balanced with relationships, and problem solving for retailers and consumers. This has resulted in a service-driven gem lab headquartered in New York and London, with laboratories in Dubai, Riyadh, Jeddah, and 11 centers in India, including Mumbai. Chirag is now found interest in historical gemstones and jewels, and in my discussion with him, I realized his keenness to do the webinar. So here we are, friends, with a small team of people who are going to discuss. Before we start the presentation, followed by a small chat later, I would request you to have your questions prepared and written down and post them in the chat at the end of the webinar around 3:15 p.m. I request you to have your videos off for a better quality of network and reception. I hand over to Usha and request her to start the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashok Bhai. Before I share my screen, I just want to thank you for inviting me to speak to you all. It's really an honor and a privilege. We had a small chat. I cannot think of a better beginning to this session than the story that you have just now shared about the Golconda Diamond. I wish I was a scholar and a student at that time, and I would have definitely liked to have touched, seen, handled this piece. And I'm going to ask you a question at the end of the session about this this absolute privilege that you had of actually owning and handling a Golconda Diamond. I met Ashok ji many years ago through a very dear common friend, Bapa Dharangdara, who was like a brother to me, no longer with us. But I have fond memories of the times that we spent together and coming and seeing you and talking to you and hoping to do a project together. That didn't happen. But, you know, the future is there for us. There's a whole new world opening up. So I hope we are going to take things forward. So actually today's session started off with a request to speak on the jewels of the Maharajas, and then changed, thanks to Chirag, to Golconda diamonds. And to me, Golconda is India's greatest gift to the world. And so, you know, I always like to speak about Golconda diamonds. I'm working on a book on Golconda diamonds, the most definitive publication on Golconda diamonds, which I hope, you know, is going to be ready in the next couple of years, because the research is so intense, and there are so many areas that I still have to chase and find out. But I'll come back and share my research findings about that at a later time. So I'm going to share my screen now so that we can start this. So I want to start with this quote that is there on the screen in front of you. Its color is that of ice, and as the dewdrop or the drop of water from a mountain stream sparkles in the light of the sun, as the icicle sparkles in winter and the stars on a cold winter night, so the diamond sparkles, and it combines and contrasts with all known gems. This was something that was written by George Frederick Coons, who was a great storyteller, a great scholar of gemstones way back in the 19th century. And this was his description about diamonds. And I think it so beautifully and appropriately describes Golconda diamonds, the color of ice, the color of dewdrop or drop of water. Those of you who have handled a pure white type 2A D flawless Golconda diamond, if you put it on a table, it's literally like a drop of water. It melts and then it forms itself again into a solid right there in front of your eyes. It sparkles in the light of the sun. It's like icicles in winter on a cold winter night. And it is known as the king of all gems. Now, the Greeks called diamonds adamas. I mean, the word diamond itself is derived from this word adamas. The meaning of the word adamas is indestructible, invincible. And I think we all know that how strong and how indestructible a diamond is, and only a diamond can cut a diamond. Similarly, in Sanskrit, diamonds are called Vajra or thunderbolt, again a metaphor for the power and the strength of the diamond. It's also known as the Indra Yuddha, or the weapon of Indra. In Hindi, they are called Hira, just a simple word meaning brilliant. And in Tamil, in the region of the Deccan, where in fact diamonds was the home of diamonds in ancient India, they are known as Bairam, or the word means hard. So as I said, all these terms are metaphors for the intrinsic hardness and brilliance of diamonds. Now, where was these diamonds found? And I'm focusing only on the Golconda region. Now, for more than, and I have a map here on the screen in front of you, if you can see the areas circled in red, are some of the diamond mines. So for more than 2,000 years, right from about the 2nd century BCE to about the early 19th century, India was the only supplier of diamonds to the world. There were no other diamond mines in the world until the discovery of the Brazilian mines in the 18th century. There were some diamonds coming out of Borneo, but Borneo production was very limited and was largely used by the royals of Malaysia and Indonesia itself. It wasn't a large, and whatever little they exported was actually went out into Europe via the Dutch exports, because Indonesia was under Dutch rule at that time. So the diamond mines were scattered all across the Deccan Plateau. And it is a region described by Kautilya in the Arthashastra. Now I'm talking about a text that goes back to the Mauryan period around the 5th or 4th century BCE. And he describes this region as rich in mines and with an abundance of diamonds, rubies, pearls, and gold. There were about 38 diamond mines scattered around India. And in the Deccan Plateau alone, there were 23 diamond mines. And it is estimated that in the 2,000 odd years that diamonds were produced in this region, the mines yielded approximately 12 million carats of diamonds. Now, on the left side of the screen, I have listed just the names of some of these mines. There were 23 mines located in the kingdoms of Bijapur and Golconda, the ancient kingdoms of Bijapur and Golconda, which stretched right from the Arabian Sea across the Deccan Plateau to the Coromandel Coast and the Bay of Bengal. Now, on the north and south, it was bounded in the north by the Godavari River and in the south by the Pennar River. Now, all the diamonds that came out of this region are therefore intrinsically called Golconda diamonds, because they came out of this region which was known as Golconda in the past. And I've just listed some of these mines, the names of these mines that appear in ancient texts. So there was Koluru, there was Gani Koluru, there was Vajrakaru, there was Ramalakota, there was Golconda, etc., etc., etc. Now, what has happened is these are ancient names, and terminology of names has undergone change in the span of 1,000 years, 1,500 years. Some of these towns or these villages have been renamed, they have got new names, or sometimes, they have been mispronounced by Englishmen who have recorded these names. And therefore, it's really, really difficult to match these old names with the new names. So we have been able to match about 20 names, old and new, cross-referencing in the text, but it's an ongoing work. There's still a lot of work to be done. Now, in the ancient times, the location of the diamond mines was kept extremely secret. They were under the control of the local rulers. There was a great demand for diamonds in Europe, and there were these gem merchants and diamond traders who were coming to India to buy diamonds. In fact, it is said that Alexander the Great, who came to India in 325 BCE, the 4th century BCE, actually came looking for gold and diamonds, because the story of Indian diamonds had already spread right across Asia Minor to Greece. And Alexander wanted to come to India to occupy this land that was yielding so much wealth. So what happened was a lot of stories and legends and myths were fabricated and spread, primarily to frighten people away from coming to the diamond mines. And I think one of the most famous of these stories, the whole adventures of Sinbad the sailor and his adventures in the Valley of Diamonds, is actually based on this myth and legend that predates it by almost 1,000 years. But one of the most famous, which has endured to us till today, is that was narrated by Marco Polo. And you can see the little quote that I have put up on the screen there. In the 13th century. So he says that there was in this region a deep valley carpeted with diamonds. Imagine the word that he uses is carpeted. So there was an entire floor of this valley was filled with diamonds, but the valley was also infested with deadly poisonous snakes. So how did people get hold of the diamonds? They took raw meat and they threw it into the valley. The diamond stuck to the raw meat, and there were a lot of eagles that were flying around. And when they saw the meat in the valley, the eagles would swoop down and they would grab the meat and bring it to the mountain top. And when they ate the meat, what was left on the ground was the diamonds. And then the gem pickers would come and pick up these diamonds. So it was to keep people away from going to these deadly valleys, because they didn't want to get bitten by the snakes in that valley. So these were stories that were very popular right down to about the 16th century. But so what is this about Golconda? What is this term Golconda? It was also a fort, the fort of Golconda, that was built as the capital of the Qutub Shahi dynasty in the Deccan, just outside the modern city of Hyderabad. This was a very important trading center. So what happened was all the diamonds that were mined in the mines around that region, that was not kept by the local ruler, was then brought to this fort and it was traded here. So Golconda Fort was a trading center, which is why again the diamonds came to be known as Golconda, primarily because they were found in the kingdom of Golconda and traded in this fort of Golconda. Buyers from all over the world, from all parts of India, came to Golconda primarily to buy diamonds. Now, important to know that for almost 2,000 years that India supplied the world with diamonds, the balance of trade remained in India's favor. We were always in the surplus, primarily because of three commodities. One was diamonds, the other one was spices, and the third one was cotton textiles. So India supplied the world with these three commodities, these three luxury commodities, and the balance of trade remained in India's favor. Today, however, just the mention of the term Golconda has taken on a completely different connotation. First of all, it creates ripples of excitement in the diamond trade. I mean, in as much as the ripple of excitement that went through me when I heard Ashok Bhai's story about his Golconda diamond earlier. And generates a lot of excitement among gem dealers, among collectors, and among scholars like myself. Importantly, the term has become synonymous with the best. What is the best in diamonds? Diamonds that are flawless, diamonds that are luminous, diamonds that are limpid, and largely the mistaken notions that the diamonds are all type 2A flawless gems. But we'll come back to that later. So what is the origin of gems in India? The Rayana Parika is a 13th century Indian text on gemology. Now, just as much as the myth and the legend of the Valley of Snakes infested with diamonds, a lot of the gemological texts, the texts on gemology in India, is filled with myths and legends. So, to sift fact from fiction becomes very difficult, but it contributes to the romance of the story. It makes for a great storytelling. Now, in the Rayana Parika, for example, the origin of gems is attributed to a powerful demon called Bala. This story occurs in the Mahabharata. Bala was slain by Indra, who was known as the king of gods, and his dismembered body, the pieces of his body fell to the earth and became the place of the deposits of precious gems. So his teeth were transformed into pearls, his bones into diamonds, his eyes into sapphires, his blood into rubies, and his bile into emeralds. And thus, according to Indian texts, was born the 5 Maharatnas of Indian jewelry: diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and pearls. Now, in every single ancient text on gem, there is the Artha Shastra, there is the Ratna Shastra, there is Varaha Mihira's Brahatta Samhita, there is Buddha Bhatta's Agasti Mata, there is Thakura Feru's Rayana Parika. All these texts, the description of gems begins with diamonds. So they all knew that India was the home of diamonds. They were all familiar with the properties of diamonds. In fact, the Ratna Pariksha states, owing to the great power attributed by the learned to the diamond must be treated as the first amongst all precious stones. So the diamond was the king of gemstones. Now, Indians believed that diamonds were magical. It was made up of the 5 elements: earth, water, sky, fire, and ether. Diamonds were symbols of purity. They were symbols of virtue, and they were worn for courage. There's so many meanings attached to diamonds. Now, those of us who think that GIA, and my apologies to anybody who is with GIA here, invented this whole classification of diamonds and the 4 C's of the diamonds, forget it. India already knew about it 1,500 years ago. Diamonds were classified, for example, in the Artha Shastra and in Varaha Mihira's Brahatta Samhita into the 4 castes. There was Brahmin diamonds, there were Kshatriya diamonds, there were Vaishya diamonds, there were Shudra diamonds, the pure white diamonds. So according to the colors, and each one had a certain property. So if Brahmin pure white diamonds conferred blessings, the Kshatriya diamond granted power and success, the Vaishya diamond, hard work and wisdom, the Shudra black diamonds or the dark colored diamonds granted the person who wore them good health, benevolence, and service to mankind, service to others. Now, in the Tanjavur in South India, in the Brihadishwara temple, and there is a photograph of the temple here on the left side of your screen, there are beautiful inscriptions about gemstones and jewelry. A lot of these inscriptions record the temple treasury, and it's just amazing. I mean, there's no time for me now to go into the details of those inscriptions, but diamonds are classified, as are rubies, as are pearls. So Mattakara Vairam were diamonds with smooth edges. Puribu was spotted diamonds. Rakta Bindu was diamonds with red spots in them. Tuya Vairam were pure diamonds. Urule Vairam were round diamonds. So there was a Mula Ratna Bhandaratar, who was a temple treasurer, who actually had knowledge of gemology and who was classifying these gemstones, and then they were inscribed in stone on the walls of the temple. So we have the entire temple treasury on the walls, and amazing. There are 65 different types of ornaments. Every single ornament into the weight of the gold, the number of gemstones, the quality of the gemstones. If there were pearls, they are classified separately. They're diamonds separately. So it's an amazing source of information to scholars like myself. Now, to this audience, I don't want to go into detail, but I think it's relevant in the context of Golconda diamonds. As we all know, and it's like taking stones to Newcastle. So I don't wish to repeat something that you all know, but just to act as a link to Golconda. Diamonds are, as we all know, broadly divided into 2 types. There's type 1 and type 2, based primarily on their chemical and physical properties. Now, type 1 diamonds, which is on the screen on the left side, constitute the large majority of natural diamonds and are characterized by the presence of nitrogen, which is the most common impurity in diamonds. Now, type 2 stones are a much, much smaller group. Importantly, they do not contain enough nitrogen to be detected by a spectrometer. Furthermore, type 2A stones contain no nitrogen or other impurities. So these gems are the purest, the most flawless stones, and they have exceptional optical transparency. So the Golconda region of India is known as an important source of type 2A diamonds. And those with a D color grade are exceptionally white and with awesome transparency, luster, and sparkle. Now, to give you an example, the Kohinoor, which I will speak about later, is a type 2A diamond, as are so many other diamonds that trace their origin to the Golconda mine. On the other hand, type 2B diamonds contain elements of boron and other chemical properties. Boron, for example, which gives it a blue tone. So the Hope diamond, which I will share with you all later, is a type 2B diamond. Now, it's important for us all to know that all diamonds from Golconda are not type 2A. And type 2A diamonds have been found in other major diamond mines in the world. I mean, I think today there are a lot of type 2A diamonds coming out of Lesotho and Botswana, etc. But all type 2A diamonds command a premium in the market have a Golconda provenance. There is a certain excitement to the Golconda provenance that sets it in a class apart. Now, a galaxy of the greatest diamonds that were known to the world were all mined in Golconda. And I'm just going to, as I said, there's not enough time for me to share the complete list with you, but I've just picked out some which have a great history to them to talk about. And we have to start with the Kohinoor. Now, Kohinoor, there is a saying that says, he who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or a woman can wear it with impunity. That was the power of the Kohinoor. Now, the term Kohinoor, the Kohinoor now today weighs 105.6 carats. The term means mountain of light. The gem is believed to have come from the Kollur mine. Again, one of the greatest of Golconda mines that yielded spectacular diamonds, diamonds of very, very large size and of great quality and purity. The Kollur mine is on the Krishna River in the kingdom of Golconda. Now, the story of the gem, some people, trace the story of gem back to Surya, the sun god. But be that as it may be, the story ends with Queen Victoria of England. So from Surya, which is eternity, to Queen Victoria of England, which is late 19th century, that is the span of the life of the Kohinoor. And we all know it takes millions and millions of years for a diamond to form. So why not the story? So while the early history of the gem is shrouded in myth and legend, the stone actually it was taken away by Nadir Shah. And you can see Nadir Shah here on the screen, the Persian invader, when he plundered the Mughal treasury. He took the gemstone to Persia, and after his death, it passed to the Afghan Ahmad Shah. After Ahmad Shah's death, it was acquired by his son Shah Shuja. Now, there was a lot of problems, a lot of war in Afghanistan, and Shah Shuja fled and took refuge in the court of Ranjit Singh of Punjab. Now, Ranjit Singh wore the diamond set in a bazuband, and you can actually see it here. If you look closely at his son Sher Singh, this is Sher Singh, his son, he's wearing, here is the Kohinoor in a bazuband as it originally was when it was taken away by the British. And you can see it here worn around his right arm in this beautiful portrait that was painted by a German artist called Franz Winterhalter. The British annexed Punjab in the late 19th century, and in about 1851, 1852. And by the terms of the Treaty of Lahore, and I think this is important to say because there was a lot of there is a lot of demand for the Kohinoor to be brought back to India, that it was stolen from India. But the fact remains that there was a war. Punjab lost the war. The British won the war. There was a treaty that was signed known as the Treaty of Lahore. And by the terms of the Treaty of Lahore, by force or willingly, the Kohinoor was surrendered to the British. The British took it to England and gifted it to Queen Victoria. And look closely, she's wearing the Kohinoor here, set in a brooch on her dress. That was how the British first set the Kohinoor. Then it was felt, the gem actually weighed about 187 carats at this time, when we see it in this form, in the bazuban and in her brooch. But the perception in England at that time was the gem was very dull and lifeless. And so they had it recut. There was this modern idiom of cutting stone to bring out the inherent brilliancy, and it was reduced to 105.6 carats. The gem was then set in this crown that belonged to Queen Elizabeth, the mother of the present queen and the wife of King George VI. And it remains in this crown to the present, and today it forms part of the crown jewels on display in the Tower of London, that anybody can pay a fee and go and visit. Now, the next diamond that I want to speak to you all, and these are all diamonds that I think you all know, but the reason why I've introduced them is to give you all a little bit about the history of these stones, because after all, this is a webinar on the history of Golconda diamonds. So the great blue diamond, one of the most magnificent blue diamonds in the world, the Hope diamond, doesn't weigh, not the size of the Kohinoor, 105.6 carats, 45.52 carats. Now, in the context of the Hope diamond, I have to introduce you all to this gentleman, this gentleman on the screen here. His name was Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. He was a French gem merchant who undertook not one trip, not two trips to India. He came 6 times to India in the 17th century during the reigns of Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb. And what did he come for? The only reason he came to India was to buy diamonds. And he acquired some of the most fabulous diamonds in India, which he then took back to France and sold to the French king, Louis XIV. Here's Louis XIV here in the bottom of the screen. And among the gems that he took with him was a beautiful blue gem. And you can see the quote here. He looked at this blue gem, the rough of this blue gem, and he says, "My eyes were lost in the beauty of these great stones. A blue diamond of some 112 carats became mine, just on the exchange of some inexpensive Indian jewelry that he had in his wardrobe." And this, in fact, is the original form of the Hope diamond. The diamond in 1673 was recut and reduced to first 67 carats. It was part of the French crown jewels and is recorded. That is the amazing thing about these European monarchies or the European states, where there are such beautiful inventories that we can go back to refer to them. The diamond in the inventory is listed as the blue diamond of the crown, or the French blue. And it was set as a pendant, and Louis XIV, Louis XV, Louis XVI wore it as part of their dynastic jewels. Now, during the time, in fact, Louis XV had it even set here in the golden fleece, which was like a royal order. And you can see the blue Hope here, right in the middle of this, the golden fleece. In 1791, at the time of the French Revolution, the gem was stolen from the palace, and it vanished for almost 20 years. Nobody knew about its whereabouts. All the French crown jewels actually were stolen. Some of them were recovered from an attic in Paris. Some of them were smuggled out to England. The whereabouts of the Hope, about the blue diamond, the French blue, was not known until 1830, when it surfaced in London and was bought by this gentleman, Henry Philip Hope. the Ottoman dressed British gentleman here in the portrait on the left. And interestingly, those of you all who live in Mumbai, when this pandemic ends and the Prince of Wales Museum, Chhatrapati Shivaji Museum opens up, please do go to the museum, because this portrait hangs in the museum. It's part of the Tata collection. And Henry Hope was a huge gem collector. He was passionately fond of gems. He had more than 1,500 gems in his collection. He bought the blue diamond, and ever since that time, the diamond has been named the Hope Diamond. After his death, the diamond was sold again. It was acquired by Pierre Cartier of Cartier. And in 1911, the stone was bought by this lady who was known as Evelyn Walsh McLean. She was a Washington, D.C. heiress, a millionairess. And you can see around her neck, you can see, one second, here it is. She's wearing the blue Hope diamond. Now, after her death, the stone was purchased by Harry Winston, the great New York jeweler. And on his, he gifted the Hope diamond to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, where it still is. Now, interestingly, just as an aside, the diamond was in London on exhibition when Winston gifted it to the Smithsonian Institution. And what did he do? He put the diamond in a little brown envelope. He went to the post office. He registered it for something like £1, 3 shillings, 2 pence, and he mailed it to the Smithsonian Institution. And imagine the shock of the trustees of the Smithsonian Institution when they received this package from London, from Harry Winston, and when they opened it, and what did they find inside? Which just came by ordinary post, registered post, was the Blue Hope. So the Blue Hope is there in the Smithsonian Institution. Tavernier also purchased the Orlov diamond in India. Now, according, again, there is a legend. The Orlov diamond was once the eye of a statue of Brahma in the Sri Ranganatha Swami temple in Sri Rangam. The story goes that it was stolen, smuggled out of India. However, Tavernier speaks about the diamond, of having seen a diamond that weighed 787 carats in Aurangzeb's treasury. He calls it the Great Mughal Diamond. Now, the diamond was apparently cut during the reign of Aurangzeb itself and reduced to its current weight, 189.62 carats. In fact, there is a whole story about the diamond being cut and how Aurangzeb was very angry with the cutter who was given the job of cutting the diamond. But that's another story in itself. Nadir Shah again acquired the diamond when he plundered the Mughal treasury, and the stone was taken away to Persia. After he died, eventually it was sold to, the stone was acquired by this gentleman, a Russian count, Grigorievich Orlov, who gifted it to his mistress, Empress Catherine the Great of Russia. Today, the Orlov is in the scepter, in the Russian scepter, is part of the crown jewels of Russia. It's in the Diamond Fund in Kremlin on exhibition. So if people visit the Kremlin, there's a special ticket to visit the Diamond Fund. Don't miss it. It's absolutely the most awesome sight to see the Orlov diamond. The next diamond, the Regent Diamond, originally weighed 426 carats. Today weighs 140.64 carats. It was acquired by Thomas Pitt, who was the governor of Fort St. George in Madras. And named after him, it was known as the Pitt Diamond. The diamond was, smuggled out of India, shipped to London as part of the British trade, where it was cut into this brilliant, a cushion-shaped gem. Now, the gem was eventually acquired by the King of France and was renamed the Regent after the King of France and became a part of the crown jewels of France. Now, you can see here Napoleon Bonaparte, here's the sword that he's carrying, and if you look closely at the sword, you can see the Regent diamond set into the sword. Today, that diamond is not in the sword. It's a loose stone on display in the Louvre, in the Galerie d'Apollon in Louvre, open to the public. Don't miss the opportunity of going and seeing it. absolutely a treat for the eyes. The next diamond, the Sansi, was discovered, of course, in Golconda. It was taken to Constantinople. Important to note that the Ottoman Empire was also a very middle point for the trade between Europe and India. A lot of these diamonds were routed through Turkey, through Constantinople. It was purchased by Nicholas Harley de Sancy in 1570, who was the French ambassador in the Ottoman Empire. He sold the diamond to King James I of England. It was sold to Cardinal Mazarin, who was served under the French king. Again, it was stolen during the French Revolution. It vanished. Eventually, it surfaced in England and was purchased by a Mumbai resident, Sir Jamsetji Jijiboy. So he was a wealthy Parsi merchant. He acquired the Sansi diamond, which he then sold to Maharaja Bhupinder Singh of Patiala. Now, we don't know again how it left India in the late 19th or early 20th century. It was eventually acquired by Lady Astor of England. But since it originally belonged to the French crown jewels, when it came on the market for sale, the French government repurchased the diamond for $1 million. And with the Regent Diamond, it's on exhibition in the Louvre. Now, the Wittelsbach Graf diamond, just a couple of more diamonds. This also, like the Hope, an exceptional blue color diamond, originally known as the Wittelsbach diamond, but was recently acquired by Graf, Mr. Lawrence Graf, again needs no introduction to this audience, and he cut the diamond down, reduced it in size to bring out the brilliance of the stone, and renamed it the Wittelsbach Graf diamond. It was discovered in India in the 17th century. Again, no question it was from the Kolur mine, perhaps the same mine from which the Hope diamond came. It originally weighed 35 carats. It was presented by Philip of Spain to his daughter, who then passed it to Maria Amelia, the portrait you can see on the screen. And if you look closely at her hair, she's wearing this blue Wittelsbach diamond as a hair ornament. It was set in the Bavarian Order of the Fleece, and you can see it here in the Bavarian crown jewel, set in the middle of this crown. And as I said, it was purchased by Graf. Now, dressed in green. Now, we have spoken the last two Golconda diamonds that I'm going to speak about. The Dresden green here, perhaps the largest green diamond in the world, also discovered in the Golconda mines. It arrived in London from India in 1722. Some of these diamonds have a great recorded history just by virtue of the fact that they were so unusual, they were so exceptional. So when I go back to old British newspapers of the 17th and the 18th century, I can actually see reports. You know, it's like what we read in the newspapers today, but there are actually reports in the British newspapers about the arrival from India of an exceptional green diamond, the company that bought it, the name of the insurance company that insured the diamond, the weight of the diamond. So it's a great record of these stones. The gem was sold to King George I of England first. It was eventually sold to Frederick Augustus II, the ruler of Saxony, in 1741. I mean, 1741, we are talking about 300 years ago, almost. Again, you can see on the right side of the screen, Order of the Golden Fleece. These were royal insignia. So we've already seen 3 orders of the Golden Fleece where these diamonds were set. I mean, this was a special jewel to set these diamonds. The diamond is still there in the order of this fleece, and it can be seen on exhibition in the Green Room in the city of Dresden in Germany, even today, in the Green Vault. It's called the Green Vault in Dresden. The indoor pairs, the story of these magnificent Golcondas can't end without the story of the indoor pairs. 2 pear-shaped Golconda diamonds, one weighing 46.39 carats, the other one 44.14 carats. They were originally owned by Tukoji Rao III, the Maharaja of Indore, and you can see him in the portrait on the left side of the screen. Now, although the early history of the diamond is unknown, there's no question they were obviously a part of the Indore treasury. Now, Tukoji, the notorious ruler of Indore, was forced to abdicate because there was a big scandalous case known as the Malabar Hill murder case, when Tukoji is believed to have had a mistress who was a dancing girl, and he got the woman's husband murdered. Now, the British, because of that, the killers actually identified the Maharaja's men, and so it kind of was traced back to the Maharaja who had put the supari on the head of this poor husband. So the British forced Tukoji Rao to abdicate, and he moved to Switzerland. The two gems were inherited by his son, Yashwant Rao Holkar II, again one of the most flamboyant Maharajas of Indore. He had them set in this fabulous necklace that he is wearing around his neck. If you look closely at this portrait, the necklace was designed and set for him by Chomé. And then when he married his beautiful wife, Sanyogita Devi, you can see her in the portrait on the right, the stones were removed and redesigned in a new setting by the French jeweler Mauboussin. And here is the drawing of the jewel. And you can see her actually wearing this necklace that was made for her on the right side. The gems were eventually sold. They were purchased by Harry Winston. And Harry Winston had them set in this fabulous necklace that you can see here on the right side of the screen. And, you know, the necklace are actually designed by an Indian, Ambaji Shinde, for Harry Winston. Today, they are in the collection of Robert Moward in Paris. Now, for just some great jewels set with Golconda diamonds, again, the Patiala necklace needs no introduction, specially made for the Maharaja of Patiala by Cartier. The necklace has diamonds that weigh almost 1,000 carats. It was made in 1928 for the Maharaja by Cartier, 5 rows of diamonds in this large bib-like necklace. Of course, the golden colored diamond that you can see here, it was a South African diamond known as the De Beers diamond. But all the other diamonds were supplied by the Maharaja, and you can see him here wearing the necklace, all Golconda gems. And he is a photograph of Golconda. I mean, really sparkling with the luminosity of Golconda gems. And then we come closer home to Baroda. Fabulous diamond necklace. I mean, this was the quantity of Golconda diamonds that once reposed in these treasuries. You can see this 5-row necklace worn by Malhar Rao Gaikwad, which was then inherited by son Khande Rao Gaikwad, and then inherited by Sayaji Rao Gaikwad. Each one a dynastic necklace, all set with Golconda diamonds. Now, there were many necklaces, such necklaces of diamonds that was made for the Baroda treasury. The 5-row necklace was one, and then we have this other 3-row necklace set here in the middle with the square. You know, Sayaji Rao, the second was a Sayaji Rao, not second. The Sayaji Rao that you can see on the screen in front of you was a great connoisseur of gems and jewels, and he, both Khande Rao and he acquired fabulous diamonds. So he purchased the Star of the South, which was a Brazilian diamond, and the English Dresden, and it was set into the necklace with this drop-shaped diamond, which was a Golconda diamond known as the Akbar Shah, which originally had 2 inscriptions dating from the time of Akbar, was then cut down. Entire histories of diamonds have been, Golconda diamonds have been destroyed with this craze to cut them down and to facet them in the modern brilliant, brilliant facets. It is such a shame because every stone is embedded with history, and we are all to blame. All of us have cut these stones and reduced it and effaced these histories. So you can see the young Sayaji Rao wearing this necklace. It was later, made elaborate with the addition of little pear-shaped diamonds on the side. Again, a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous Golconda diamond necklace. Now, Dating, how far back do we see? What is the earliest diamonds that we see from Golconda? It goes back to the 2nd century before Christ, 2nd century BCE. Diamonds from India were traveling to Europe, and they appear in these Roman diamond rings. And I'm just showing you a collection of them. Some of them are in British Museum, some of them are in a private collection. But look, they never cut down the diamonds. Look at the way they are set in their original octahedral form. All that was done was the facets. The sides of the diamond were polished to bring out the sparkle. And this was the way before diamonds were cut in the modern fashion. And in India, the gem cutters made every effort to maintain size and weight. They were not willing. They thought the diamond had this intrinsic luminosity that it would sparkle, and therefore you should not reduce the size and the weight of the diamond. And they merely faceted the octahedra. So these are some examples. Every one of these rings dates back to between 2000 years and 1500 years ago, all set with Golconda diamonds. And then we have the Golconda diamonds that were inscribed. We have this fabulous diamond known as the Taj Mahal Diamond, inscribed during the Mughal period. It bears an inscription which Begum-e-Badshah, 23 and 1037, referring to Nur Jahan, the wife of Jahangir, the 23rd regnal year of Jahangir, and the year 1037, which was equivalent to 1627, 1628 AD. What a great dating we get for this Golconda diamond. The stone was acquired in India by Cartier. It was set into this, the pendant was then strung on this necklace. It was purchased by Richard Burton as a gift for his beautiful wife, Elizabeth Taylor, in 1972. And now we have absolutely the greatest collection of Golconda diamonds in a collection that is accessible to all of us to see, the Nizam of Hyderabad's jewels, a collection that I was very privileged to catalog, to see and to study. I think this is the largest collection of Golconda diamonds in one place. The government of India acquired about 375 items from the collection, and pieces from the collection are now scattered in private collections and in museums around the world. So 2 Sarpej, the top left-hand one in a private collection, the one on the right in the government collection. Again, a Sarpej, this one actually dates to the early 18th century. A Bazuband, and look at the size of the diamonds. A scabbard for a sword, anklets, even paisates. And then we have a belt buckle, the one on the top set with diamonds, the one at the bottom, which is the baglu set. Sorry, one second, I want to go back to that. So the belt is set with beautiful golden colored Golconda diamonds. Now, interestingly, when I did a research of this collection, I thought this belt looked very, very European. And eventually, after my first book was published, I discovered that the belt was actually set by a French jeweler for the Nizam of Hyderabad. But the story goes in his diary, and he's recorded it in his diary, that one day somebody walked into his workshop with a wooden bowl full of Golconda diamonds. And this is the belt that he designed to accommodate those magnificent stones. Again, a collection of Golconda diamonds from the Nizam's collection, and from the Deccan, the 2 pendants that you see on the right side of the screen are in the Al Sabah collection. Rare items that have survived. Stones have not been recut, remodeled into new settings. They have survived in their original form. So, this is our heritage. This is, what we are giving to the world. Again, from the Al Thani collection, items of jewelry set with Golconda diamonds. You can see on the left side of the screen, a beautiful pear-shaped pink diamond. Again, from Golconda. Look at the crescent shape. Look at the way they cut with minimum loss. They maintain the size of the diamond. And what's beautiful, I have to mention, is the reason, even though every diamond is of a different shape and different size, how beautifully they devise the kundan setting to camouflage be irregular stones and create perfectly symmetrical and beautiful jewels. And then we have these flat diamonds. All that they did was faceted them around the edges. In the West, they are known as portrait diamonds. And the one diamond that you see on the screen, 20.22 carats, is actually formerly in the Al-Thani collection. And if you look at this portrait of Shah Jahan on the screen, I mean, sorry. You can see in this agate he's carrying, he is set with a portrait diamond, which appears to look very similar to the one on the screen here. And there's this great portrait diamond, which is in the Kremlin Museum, which acts like a glass on this bracelet that has a portrait of Tsar Alexander I that is painted, which is why it was known as a portrait diamond. Because of the natural optical properties of the diamond, it brought the portrait, it magnified the portrait at the behind the diamond and actually shed light on this portrait, which is perhaps why Ian Balfour named them the portrait diamond. And then we have this, again with portrait diamonds set with these, I call them just, flat diamonds. We call them parabs and bilandis here in India. Again, if you see this beautiful Mughal necklace set with 5 amazing portrait diamonds, flat Mughal diamonds, ranging in weight from 28 carats to 15 carats. It was in my exhibition in Russia, in a private collection in the US now. Looking to find a good home, they want to make sure that a museum or a great private collection acquires it. And if you look at the portraits of the Maharajas on the screen from Jodhpur and Arcot and Bundi, you will see them all wearing these magnificent necklaces set with these large flat diamonds. And these are some of the stones that have, Golconda stones that have come up for auction in recent times. We have the Agra diamond, the pink one that sold in 1990 for 6.9 million, the Archduke Joseph, which sold for 21.5 million, the Beau Sancy. Every one of these diamonds has a history. And, I've linked it. The Beau Sancy, for example, was once owned by Marie de Medici, the Queen of France. The Princi Diamond, one of the recent diamonds to sell, which sold for a whopping $39 million, a pink diamond named Princi after the son. Again, the Princi actually originated from the treasury of the Nizam of Hyderabad, was named Princi after the young prince, son of Sita Devi of Baroda. And my last slide is this magnificent Golconda diamond known as the Nizam diamond that surfaced some years ago, which I have had the privilege of studying and handling over the last few years. 120.5 carats, type 2A, deep flawless, not been recut, slightly irregular. And what for me was amazing of in this diamond was not only this limpid beauty of the diamond, but just the thinness of the stone. The amazing, and I've shown you a side view of the stone. And as I said in the beginning, when you put this diamond on a table, it's like a drop of water. It appears to become air. It appears to be a solid. It appears to be a liquid. It appears to sometimes just vanish into a gaseous form. And that indeed is the beauty of Golconda diamonds that will endure forever. Thank you.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Ushaji. I think you've actually refreshed our minds, and you've probably taken us a few hundred years behind, and the history is so fascinating, and the discussion on diamonds is a never-ending one. I think we have Chirag who should take over.
I'll close this.
Yes. Thank you, Ushaji, for sharing this rich, fascinating history. It took us on a real journey of what it was all about then. I would like to continue this and also share a few interesting topics as well as ask you a few questions related to what we've already been discussing. Let me quickly share my screen and great. So as we're discussing the magic, mystery, and allure of Golconda diamonds from India to the world, Usha ji, you mentioned about Ratna Pariksha, and let me share a small experience that I had when I was in Paris at the National Library of France. And I came across the manuscript that you see on the screen right now, which is a part of the Ratna Pariksha from Aryabhat. And the museum was really kind enough to share the digital copy with me. And I was so fascinated at that point. This is about 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, this is what Indian scholars did years and years and millennia before. And that's when I started sort of digging in a little more to understand what it was all about. And I came across the fact that Chanakya, in his book Arthashastra, written between 323 to 329 BC.
Your slide is not being seen, Chirag.
The slide is not being seen.
Not the one you want to show.
You have to show the full screen.
Can you see it now?
No.
We are able to see, but only the preface, the SGL, the Magic, Mystery, and Allure. The title only we are seeing.
Okay, let me stop my screen share and restart, because I think I could see it on my screen, but for some reason it wasn't showing. Can you see it now?
No.
We are seeing the same thing.
Go to slideshow.
Correct. Yeah, I'm pretty much on it, and it's surprising. Okay.
Yeah, now we can see.
Now, okay. So this is the copy of the Ratna Pariksha that I came across at the National Library of France. And it was very interesting to know that Chanakya had written about how the business of pearl, diamonds, and all important gems were traded, and their classification into Maharatna and Uparatna. And Ushaji, you shared a very, very interesting history about how Thanjavur scripts mention about the classification of these stones. Now, as a gemologist, I would surely want to go there one day and understand what these classifications were. And it's interesting to know from you that even the inclusions were detailed in it, on what type of inclusion would classify a stone into what type. This is so fascinating for me as a gemologist. I can't tell you. So thank you for sharing that information. And can you tell us about Thakur Bheru? I think this is the first recorded transcripts we have, right?
Thakura Peru was in the court. He was a court treasurer,
Right.
and he wrote a book called Rayana Parika.
Okay.
But what has happened is a lot of these texts they have been lost. The original texts have been lost, and we have commentaries of later writers who actually referred to the earlier texts. So that's how we know, for example, that there was an earlier text, and we know because they are referring to an earlier text. So today, when I am referring, if I am talking about Dance of the Peacock and Dance of the Peacock, I'm speaking about Kautilya's Arthashastra. Then tomorrow, maybe somebody will be referring and talking about Dance of the Peacock.
Right.
So Thakur, as did in the Ratna Pariksha, or even in the Agasti Mata, or Varahamihira's Brahata Samhita, all these people have spoken about gemstones. They've spoken about the power of gemstones. A lot of it is to do with the magical properties of gemstones. Sometimes, it's not as scientific as that we would like to be. What we are looking, it becomes very romantic. It becomes, grind a diamond and eat it, and it's good for your stomach. Or wear an emerald and you can repulse a snake. Or wear this then has come into the whole body of astrology, about the power of gemstones, about the amuletic power of gemstones. So Thakura Peru was one of those scholars who also, but then again, after you go through the whole text, you will get 20% or 30% information that is original, that actually sheds light on the scientific aspects of gemology.
Correct. It also very interestingly mentioned that how these stones were traded, and that was just to another level. It mentioned that how these stones were put in a small pocket. You cannot see those stones. You have to literally put your hand in it, feel the stone size, and then give an offer. Is that the case?
Yes, actually, Tavernier, who wrote his diaries on his 6 trips to India, has an amazing section that is devoted to how diamonds were bought and sold in India. So he actually speaks about how people, the seller and the buyer would sit across from each other, and these transactions invariably took place in the night. And they would actually see the stones by the light of oil lamps, because he says that an oil lamp that is placed in a crevice in a wall would shed the correct light to be able to determine the quality of the stone and to see if there were any inclusions or any fissures or any spots inside the stone. The final transaction then took place, there was no verbal exchange. There were signals that they made with their thumbs and their fingers. So when they touched different parts of their thumbs and their forefingers, the bargaining took place only by touch of fingers. You were allowed to feel the stones that was taken out of these little pouches. You have to study. You could actually handle the stones and feel how they felt and made an offer. And then, of course, depending on the size of the stones, you were allowed to inspect them under this natural oil lamp.
Wow. I just want to go back to history and be there to see how this was done. At the laboratory level, we have to use a scale that gives us 3 decimals after a point today.
Exactly, and you put them in those white papers and with the light to determine the color of the stones.
Exactly.
I have a little experience about the way the deals were conducted in the diamond market. There are too many people sitting across the street and in the diamond trading halls in Mumbai, and you would use your handkerchief to cover the hand communication that happened, and it generally was a very simple signal. You are only talking about rates at that time, and you press one finger. It is called 1 or 10 or 100, and number of times you do is the amount of zeros that add, and you can press 3 fingers at a time. That's starting with 3, and the number of times you press the 3 fingers, it is 30, 300, 3,000 or 30,000. So at one point of time, people were so conversant with this that they would just touch the 3 fingers and say, okay, fine. So you're asking for a rate of 30. No, I'm not agreeable. I want 33. They would press it 2 times, 33. And he said, no, I can't pay you this. And this would start. And there was hardly any communication. And suddenly they would say, fine, deal done.
Ashok bhai, in fact, I'll give you a small recent history experience. When we started in India, I was in Ahmedabad once, around 2007-8, and when I went to some jewelers over there, they were dealing in diamond jewelry, and the classification was deluxe and super deluxe, not of VVS and VS.
Which
And
year?
and I was pretty surprised that time. I said, wow, what is deluxe and super deluxe?
In which year?
2007-8, I'm talking about.
Okay. That was the term used right from the 70s.
Oh, okay. I wasn't born then, so I don't know. But anyway.
In South India, for example, my grandmother would always speak about blue jagger diamonds.
Yeah.
Those were diamonds that were the whitest of white diamonds.
Absolutely.
And they were known as, blue jagger diamonds. But I have never been able to find out what was the origin of the term blue jagger diamonds. They didn't know it. I mean, you go to a jeweler in South India and, my grandmother would tell me that we would only buy blue jagger diamonds because we wouldn't compromise on anything else.
Actually,
So-
what would happen is that when the diamond is so white, and when you are seeing it in broad daylight and the sky
It
is
looks
blue,
blue.
it will
Yeah.
only look blue. And that's why they say that the diamond is actually, see, bluish.
Yeah.
It's got a tinge of blue. And that's jagger blue. And the jewelers were
Beautiful.
very smart in those days.
Great. So continuing to this, I would like to take you all to the next slide now. There seems to be some problem at my end with the slide share, so please bear with me. You all can see this slide, right? The new one, which is Vasco da Gama's.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So this, learning a little more about history has really fascinated me on how 1498, the year when Vasco da Gama landed in Calicut, literally was the beginning of a new era in terms of trade for India, for the Western world to come to India. And it opened so many new avenues after that. And I also read that how Vasco da Gama's first trip to Calicut literally ended up in a disaster in a way because of the fact that he couldn't bring the right gifts for the royal king over there. Ushaji, would you like to share something on this?
So in the context, I mean, Vasco da Gama came, the trade to India was, the India trade was dominated by the Arabs. And again, the trade was primarily in three luxury commodities, which was diamonds, spices, and cottons. And as the world was opening up, they were looking for trying to dislodge this monopoly of trade that was held by the Arabs. So Vasco da Gama actually came to India at the same time, around the same time that Christopher Columbus went and discovered the New World. And what Vasco da Gama discovered was the direct sea route to India, because previously it was largely a land journey. And after the discovery of the, from Europe to India, they always traveled by land, but he was the first one to round the Cape of Good Hope and cross the Arabian Sea and land in Calicut. Vasco da Gama was trying to establish a Portuguese empire in India. But I think what changed with Vasco da Gama's arrival in India in the context of the gem and jewelry trade was Goa. The acquisition of Goa. The city of Goa became the gem trading center of the world from about the year 1509, 1510. And I'm talking 15 to 16 years before the Mughals even put their little toe into India. Babur came in 1526. By 1509, Goa had already been established as a gem center. There are such beautiful descriptions in Portuguese manuscripts about the streets of Goa lined with shops selling gemstones, with piles and piles of gemstones that were sourced from the Golconda mines. They came the rubies from Sri Lanka, Kashmir, sapphires from Kashmir. And because of the fact that the Portuguese had already also occupied the New World, discovered the New World, it opened up the trade between India and the Portugal, especially in emeralds. That is the time when green emeralds came flowing into the Indian market. And it was a monopoly. India, if the world consumed Indian diamonds, India consumed Colombian emeralds. They were crazy. The Mughal emperors were crazy about Colombian emeralds. But even before that, the Silk Route was an important trading center. The diamonds went from India to Venice. Venice was a very, very important trading center, especially during the Renaissance. Then the trading center moved to Bourges and then to Antwerp. When the Jews were expelled from Spain because of the Inquisition in Spain and Portugal, the center of the gem trade became Amsterdam because of the relocation of the Jewish population to Amsterdam. The Jews were one of the biggest gem traders.
Right, interesting. And see where Goa is a center of different sorts today.
Chirag, you'll have to move a little faster.
Yes, sure. And then we, of course, had Mr. Jacques Cartier, who came to India in 1911. That again was a very important episode in the Indian history, which changed a lot of things, and how Indian royal jewels were being commissioned by him, including the Patiala necklace, right, Usha ji?
Yes, that's right.
Some of the stones that we really want to know a little more from Usha ji is about the Darya-e-Noor, which was apparently the largest pink diamond in the world, 182 carats, and acquired by Nadir Shah during time 1739 when we invaded Mughal Delhi. This was part of the collection that he took away with the peacock throne, right? If I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Peacock throne, and the entire treasury of loose stones. And if you go to Tehran, the collection is actually on exhibition in the Bank of Tehran. That is,
Correct.
I think it's open 3 days a week, and you can actually take an appointment and go and see the jewels. The
I have-
Darya-e-Noor, you've seen it?
Yeah, I actually visited that in Tehran. It was
Yeah, it's just
really
amazing sight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, this entire collection was documented by two Canadian gemologists known as Neil and Tushingham in 1963 or 1964. Nobody has had access to the collection after that. But, they were both gemologists from Canada, and they have actually discovered that the Darya-e-Noor, and there's another pink diamond in the collection, which is set into one of the crowns, one of the tiaras, known as the Nuru line. They actually traced it that the two stones came out of the same rough gem.
Right.
It's a huge story by itself. So I think
I think it appears in the magazine.
Yeah.
It appears in the book, the Crown Jewels of Tehran.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That vault is something else. I was just awestruck. Anyways, moving to the next stone, which is the Shah diamond, which is currently housed in the Diamond Fund in Kremlin. And of course, I really want to visit the Diamond Fund one day. Again, acquired by Nadir Shah. And there is an interesting fact during the 1829, when the Iranian, this was part of the Iranian crown jewels, and the Russian diplomat Alexander Lebedev was murdered in the capital of Persia. The Russian government had demanded severe punishment of those responsible, and in fear, the court of Fateh Ali Shah sent his grandson Khusro Mirza to St. Petersburg, where he gave the diamond to Russian Tsar Nicholas as a present. I guess just to save themselves from a war or something. But this is apparently one of the fine, exceptional diamonds, which is so clear that it is, in fact, has a natural that we call in the gemological world on it, still left intact because of the clarity of the stone.
And it has 3 inscriptions, so it has a great recorded history.
Correct. And then one of the stones that has really caught my eye is the Nasak diamond, which originated in India in the 15th century. It was part of the idol. I'm not sure if it was the idol eye, but it was at the Trambakeshwar Shiva temple, which I guess is very close to Bombay, near Nasik rather, and how the British acquired it in the 1817. Is there anything more about this that you would like to share, Usha ji?
There are only some drawings of this stone. We don't know the current whereabouts of the stone. It must have been recut. Again, one of those stones destroyed by the craze to recut and camouflage its history.
Right.
Very little record. Other than the drawings, there's no other record of this stone.
I think this stone was embedded in near the Shivling in Trambakeshwar in the temple. The temple priests over there will give you a full insight on this stone whenever you visit the temple. It is not too far away. It's about 3 hours from Mumbai, and it is still intact. And the shape that is shown here, I think over there it was probably almost like a roundish shape.
Yes.
Wow, interesting. Okay, going to the next one, the Piggy Diamond, which was obtained by George Pigott during his term as a British governor of Madras. the capital of Tamil Nadu. And it was, at the time when it arrived in England, was the largest diamond, auctioned by Christie's in 1802 for 9,970 pounds. What a price as of today. I'm sure
When
it's
a diamond, we don't know its whereabouts.
right. Exactly.
We have
So
to
much is
rely
lost
on
in
the
this.
history.
It's such a shame, really. So much is just lost in these, recutting in terms of ownerships and everything else.
Well, I think it already speaks for itself that it was under the ownership of the East India Company. And why were these companies set up? They were actually the ones who run the Kolar gold mines and the Golconda mines, and they tried and excavated just about everything that they could. Not only the diamonds, but if you look at within the 20, 23 years or 30 years that Kolar mines was active, they have almost taken away over 800 to 900 tons of gold from India.
Correct, Ashok.
What the East India Company actually did is they didn't operate the mines. They didn't own the mines. The mines were owned and operated by the local Maharaja. But there was a very vibrant trade in India. And obviously, when they were trading in local currency, they couldn't take that currency because there was no international banking channels in those days. So every kingdom, every state had its own currency. So what the British did was converted their currency of that trade into diamonds, which was easily portable, and they took it out in the form of diamonds. And then they sold it in England and, in local British pounds sterling, and kind of, made a huge profit on their trade in India.
Right. Unfortunately, it still happens, Ushaji, but not in the right direction. And then you mentioned about the Princi Diamond already, which is apparently the third largest pink diamond in the world, owned by the Nizam of Hyderabad, auctioned in 1960 at Sotheby's, London for 46,000 pounds. Later on, auctioned by Christie's in 2013 for 39.3 million. Just 53 years, and then the price has, gone to an unimaginable extent, 39.3 million to 46,000. We'll also talk about the Graph Pink quickly, which is again one of the large stones that have come out of the Golconda mines. Sold for $46 million in 2010 at Sotheby's, Geneva, the highest ever sum achieved for a single jewel at the time. This had just shook the world, because after the 2008 crisis, literally in 2 years, when a stone of this value was auctioned, it created great waves. And then last but not the least, the Navanagar necklace, which was a ceremonial necklace of the Maharaja of Navanagar, 1931. Jacques Cartier, who presented the Maharaja with a dazzling project, and a replica also featured in the Ocean's 8 movie, if you all have seen it. But I personally wasn't aware of this fact until a few years ago, actually. I did see the Ocean's 8, but never related the fact.
Your voice is gone, Chirag.
But apparently the Baroda dynasty had a lot of important jewels, right? Some of the most...
All of them, all the kingdoms had great
We can't hear you.
No, here it is okay.
Great. So guys, thank you so much. And it was a real pleasure, Usha ji, to share this information. I thank everyone over here in GJC, Ashok bhai, Avinash bhai, everyone at the GJC team. And we will be happy to answer if there are any questions.
You'll have to get your screen out if you can.
Sure.
Avinash ji, are you able to hear?
Yeah, Ashok bhai, there is a very good question which has come in. In regards to Golconda diamonds, was there any particular reason for most of the jewelry to be made in Europe and not in India?
All the Nizam's jewels were made in India. All the jewels that I showed were all made in India. All the Maharaja's jewels, I mean, whether it's Maharajas or the Zamindars or the rich people, They were all, I mean, that was the only diamond that was available. So it's just that we don't have the material that either people is still in people's safe deposit locker and they are not willing to share and show it to us and allow us to document it and publish it and exhibit it, or the stones have been recut and recycled into new settings.
I can just add to this.
And there's a lot of material still lying in temples and in bhandars all over the country that has not been studied and documented still.
I think one very important fact is that in the turn of the century, there were a lot of visits by the French jewelers, all the big names like Cartier and Matusa and after Tavernier came in, and these people visited the Maharajas regularly, and they made jewelry out of platinum. And platinum was not easily conversant with the Indian manufacturing technique. Secondly, the Indian jewelry, we never knew how to set it with prongs. We always used to set it in the way Jadao jewelry is made. So there was no Indian practice to set jewelry in prongs. And this is the only way in which the real luster used to come out very well. And these people, when they saw the richness and they started visiting Europe too many times, they got into a kind of a infatuation for all European styling, and they wanted this kind of jewelry to be made in India. And that's how these people actually got into the international brands and these big names coming into India. And they became big after that, surely. But that's how this jewelry was being made. But as earlier, as Usha ji very rightly said, it was all Indian, absolutely.
One more question, and then I want two people to get in. One is Vinod Haigreve ji, and then one more guy might come in. Chirag ji, is there any way wherein people can get to know the authenticity when a diamond is sent to the laboratories to check whether they are Golconda diamonds? Can you authentify that?
Unfortunately not, to be honest, because the only classification that is possible is whether it's a type 2A stone or not. And of course, type 2A stones are only about 1 to 2% of all the diamonds that are actually around today. So the best classification available is whether it's a type 2 or not. And diamonds cannot be classified the way other gemstones can be, whether it's a Colombian emerald or a Kashmiri sapphire or a Burmese ruby. It can happen with these gemstones because of their specific inclusions coming out of those origins. Whereas diamond inclusions are all the same. So whether it's a diamond mined in Canada, Africa, Australia, or in the history, in the past from India. So the answer is no, not definitively.
Okay. Vinod ji, over to you.
No, it's always very fascinating to hear Usha ji on her talks. She can hold an audience of 500 or 1,000 people spellbound for at least,
hours together.
3 hours, 2 hours, 5 hours. It's very interesting. There's so much of history and lore in this country. The royal families of India did make a lot of jewelry. They had three ways in which to make, as I learn and as I know. One is that they also had their own, what they said, Aramane in South, Aramane goldsmiths, which means that they also had workshops of jewelry making within the palace itself. So some of them did that. And some of them did jewelry with that time jewelers who were there in India, in different parts of the country. One of the things that they always did with some of these European jewelers, especially the well-known brands, is because I think there was a certain trust factor when they had to give so much of their gemstones to them. They would know that it would not get changed or would not get misplaced. So there was a little trust factor with those people. Therefore, a large number. Many of these European jewelers actually did a lot of job works for the royal family. So they took the gemstones and made and designed it. So they knew how to express it, and so therefore there was a little more a different skill set with them. Indian jewelers would rarely have designers with them. They would not, therefore they had to deal with a different level. Correct me if I'm on track, Usha.
No, absolutely. I mean, the concept of a family jeweler is something that's so unique to India, and that trust is built over generations, not only within the same family, but also that trust with the jeweler. So a jewelry manufacture was a tradition that was passed in that Guru Sishya Parampara from father to son. It only has changed a little now. So they would always go back to that family jeweler. Now, the more and more I research, I'm convinced that there were no, as today, there were not thousands and thousands of jewelry manufacturers in the country. More and more now, I'm being able to assign pieces, especially historically important pieces, to a particular manufacturer, because you start seeing those signs. I mean, when you look at a Krishna Chetty piece, for example, you're looking at something that is a hallmark of your manufacturer, whether it's a particular design, whether it's a particular flourish, if there's a particular, flower, you see those things coming repeatedly again and again in a piece of jewelry, and therefore you can assign it to the manufacturer. Now, as far as the Maharajas were concerned, it was very popular. It was very fashionable in the late 19th and early 20th century, and they were all traveling to Europe. They were all traveling to Paris. They had homes in Paris. They had homes in England. And therefore, it was important for them because we must also remember that in the geopolitical context, it was a time when the whole nationalist movement was kind of on the upswing in India. And there were these alignments that were happening where they were identifying with Queen Victoria of England. I mean, Queen Victoria was their queen. There was no government of India as such. And therefore, it was important for them to appear Western, to look Western, which is why somebody like Maharaja Bhupinder Singh of Patiala actually took, I won't say all, I mean, there's always this mistaken notion that he took all his jewels and handed it over to Cartier. Not at all. He picked out pieces from his treasury and he handed over to Cartier because he wanted to wear this Western style jewelry, Western set jewelry to convey his allegiance and loyalty to the Empress, to the Queen Empress of India. So there were all these things that were going on in India at the same time. So there are no watertight compartments. So one has to be very fluid. And also one must remember that by the late 19th century, there were no Golconda diamonds available. Diamonds were flooding into India from South Africa, which was supplying India again with that hunger for stones that India had, because India has always had this passion for jewelry. However, the stones that came in from South Africa was distinctly differently cut. And when you look at a piece of a royal jewelry, you can actually, differentiate between old cut diamonds and new cut diamonds. So what was the diamonds that came from the treasury that was handed over, and what were the diamonds that were probably in stock diamonds with the company that they were then mixing. You see this in the Nizam's jewels, especially in pieces that were made in the late 19th and 20th century.
You're right. Actually, the Golconda diamonds do have a very, very different feel when you look at them. It has a very different whiteness. It has a different softness, which is unlike some of them are very stone hardy. Even today, when we look at diamonds of different sources, I mean, I'll give you an example of when you look at something from Canada to something from South Africa, there is a very different look even after it is cut. So there is something that science has still not conquered, I believe. I think there is something beyond the seas that we know of today to understand that little nuance And we may not have that equipment and we cannot all the time rely only on a person's capability to say something about a stone. We need to back it up with something. So therefore, in the modern science of gemology, it's still not, I think, hasn't come to that level where things like nature has just kept a little above and, away from science to conquer. They left a lot for science to conquer still.
Yeah, Vinodji, absolutely correct. And that is where, when you see those Zimbabwe stones, even though the color pretty much will be on the scale, you still have that different feeling.
Yes.
When you hold a Zimbabwe stone. And that is unfortunate that, what Avinashji asked on behalf of the audience, that is there a classification? Gemologically, no. But yeah, if we go back to history, we know until 1730, when the first mine was discovered in Brazil, India was the only source. So if there is a type 2 stone, 1730, we knew it had to be Golconda.
One question which was in two parts. One Chirag has already answered from Laksh Pahuja. If Usha ji, can you, if you want to give a message to the young designers today, what will be your message to the young designers?
Learn your material. Touch stones, feel gold, feel metal. You cannot be a designer unless you know your material. Every designer, I mustn't generalize it. The large number of designers think drawing is designing. It isn't. If you don't know your material, you can't design. Handle stones, touch it. Do you know what is the size of a 5-carat stone or the size of a 2-carat stone? What does a stone feel like? So my advice, and I used to say that to my students when I was teaching at SNDT universities, don't come for a design class. First, go and touch material. Handle the material. We don't have the concept of studio designers in India. I mean, if you look at the West, the most promising designers are people who are actually manufacturing themselves. Here we design on paper and leave it to the karigar to interpret that design, and it is the brilliance of that karigar who's able to look at that design and adapt it to a finished product. So I think for the mantra for a designer is no materials.
Great. Hope your answer will be satisfying to Laksh. Last question before I go to Ashok Bhai. Mr. Chandra Surana from Calcutta wants to add something. Go ahead, Mr. Chandra Surana.
Namaskar, Usha ji.
Namaskar.
Thanks to MindSpeak, our trip to Jaipur remained due and it didn't happen. So I want to take you through the treasures of Jaipur whenever it happens next. I want to ask you a question about what do you think is something which people should preserve now in the period from what you showed and what has been done now? Because again, I'll see a lot of transition in the taste and people wanting to change the inventory to the modern times and modern aspect. What do you advise, what to preserve and how to think about that aspect with your perspective about all the study you have done?
Preserve records. Please preserve your records. Preserve your designs. Preserve your inventories. Preserve your clients, who you made something for. I know these things are a little sensitive in India because of the sensitivity of jewelry. But, this temptation to go and burn things, destroy the records, which is why we are a country devoid of records, devoid of inventories. I think it's incumbent on everybody to set up, every jewelry manufacturer to set up a parallel archiving establishment where you are archiving your designs, you are archiving your discussions with your clients, archiving your invoices, because this becomes the material not only to document your own history, but also to provide material for future historians who look back at this period to see what was the design. If there are no designs to look on, what do I know what is the design movement in India in 2020, for example? So archiving.
Oh, what a super idea. Thank you so much. My question was more to the perspective of the jewelry, but you took my mind to some other dimension. So we'll sit with more with the jewelry aspect. And I'm not trying to show my face because I'm worried about the network here. So please pardon about that. Thank you so much, MindSpeak, for this wonderful session again.
Chandraji,
Thank
please
you.
make us part of your archives there.
Sure, sir. Sure, it's all yours.
Avinash, can I just ask one last question?
Please, sir.
Usha ji, there is apparently it is being mentioned somewhere that the Nizam's treasury was guarded by cobras, and that every time he had to go to the treasury, these cobras were locked up, and he would often visit the treasury because of the fact that he wanted to catalog all the treasury. And the only other person apart from the family who visited was a specialist from Cartier, who had quoted that it would take him years to catalog it. Can you throw some light
It's
on
like
this?
the story of Sinbad the sailor and the valley infested with diamonds. We hear even in Sri Padmanabha Swami temple that the vaults are being guarded by cobras, and they can hear the hissing sound of cobras behind the door of the vault. These are stories. Just it sounds nice and romantic, but just stories.
Right. And the value that the government of India had paid the Nizam's family, that was roughly, I think,
218 crores
in
1995.
1995. Okay, that's when it was settled, is it? I thought it was 63 when the...
No. The collection was first offered to the government of India in 1972 after the death of Mir Osman Ali Khan, the last Nizam of Hyderabad.
Right.
The whole matter took nearly 25 years before they could arrive at a settlement. I mean, there were court cases. A lot of pieces were actually sold. When you compare the trust deed, the list of jewels in the trust deed, and there were 3 jewelry trusts, to what was then finally acquired by the government of India, a lot of stuff had already vanished in the intervening 20 years. So,
Right.
I mean, what was your question? 218 crores, was it a fair price to pay? Yeah.
Exactly.
Wrong time to ask. In 2020, you can't ask this question.
How do you put a value on these things?
How can you put it?
Yeah. So, you can say it's priceless. I mean, there are people who come to me with old pieces of jewelry and say, this is priceless. Now, nothing can be priceless if there is a buyer, if there is a seller and there is 2 or more buyers. So there has to be a price to it. The Nizam was offering the collection to the government of India. They offered a price. It went through so many valuation processes by many jewelers, actually several jewelers, even right here in the city of Mumbai. And then finally a price was agreed. The important thing to remember is this collection will never be sold. So you will never realize what is the price that it is going to achieve on the market. Unlike the Princi Diamond that sold for $39 million, none of the Nizam's pieces will be sold. So what can act as a comparison is that every now and then, the Nizam's family was a huge family. There are more than 200, 300 people in that family. So every now and then some piece from the Nizam's family comes auction or comes to a dealer. So that can become a reference point for, pricing of items in the Nizam of Hyderabad's collection.
Correct. Great. Thank you so much.
I had the privilege of going through the Nizam's jewelry when it was before it was sold in Mumbai, as I was an assistant to one of the valuers. I think it was in 91 or 92. And he had taken me to just make notes while he's doing the valuation. And I had the fortunate chance of actually seeing the entire collection. And the next time I saw it was this year itself, last year in New Delhi at the
National Museum.
At the museum, yes.
Yes.
So I think it was a real pleasure seeing the entire collection. I just wouldn't like to go out of that place. I spent about 3-4 hours over there. And my cousins who live over there were just checking on me whether I'd actually got lost or something happened to my health or something. How can you just leave this place and go?
I had the same experience in Iran when I went to the Bank Melli Museum, where the crown jewels are exhibited. Unfortunately, you cannot spend more time because it's being you have a person who takes you on a small tour inside, and not wait over there for more than literally 5 minutes to ask question. But that collection is just fascinating. It has the pink diamonds from India, the Daryai Noor. It has the other stone as well. It has some of these other jewels that the Iranian royals have acquired. So yeah, there is so much history around the world, especially related to Golconda.
The Peacock Throne is over there. A lot of what Nadir Shah took from India is over there. So there is a huge amount of stuff which has come from India is
Correct.
lying in Tehran.
Yes, yes.
Irrespective, I think we've had a wonderful session today,
Yes.
and it is so fortunate for us to have Dr. Usha Balakrishnan with us to really pour our heart out on every single element of historical significance on the field of Golconda diamonds is something which is so specific, so interesting. And I was actually totally engrossed and I totally lost track of time. That 1.5 hours just flew by as if it is about 5 minutes or 10 minutes away. And I just couldn't get out of the whole thing. I wish I could get more and more out of this. Ushaji, this is unfair for us that you just give us 1.5 hours, but I think that was the time we had fixed. And I, as Vinod has very rightly said, that we need about 3 or 4 hours uh, time spent with you, and we should arrange something like this probably in the future, whenever possible, even with a very select few people from India who are actually connoisseurs or people who are very keenly interested in the history of gems and jewelry across in various other elements beyond the Golconda diamonds. And that would make it a very interesting aspect for us all. So my really biggest gratitude to Ushaji, big vote of thanks to Chirag for this wonderful webinar. Friends, this is our 50th webinar, and we have had this wonderfully conducted by both of these people. We are coming across now on a weekly basis on every Sunday, which is not this Sunday, but the next Sunday, which is the 7th of June. We will be conducting a webinar on Kaizen and the way it can associate with the gems and jewelry industry as such, with Mr. Jayant Murthy, who's going to speak on this subject. Till then, friends, wish you a wonderful day, and please take care and be responsible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ushaji. Thank you, Chiragji.
And a big thank you to all the listeners.
Thank you.
Nitin Bhai has come. Nitin Bhai, thank you very much.
Or what?
For
For doing
what?
nothing. What leaders for doing nothing.
No, but you patiently listen to everything.
that you should thanks to me.
Right. Good day, sir.
Thank
Yes.
you. Bye-bye.